Welcome to the Freedom CEO podcast. It's about becoming the chief decision maker over your life in order to step into a life of freedom. From business, health, wealth, charity, and giving back to just doing life on your own terms. I am your host, Shay Imbidiata. I am an award-winning activist, change maker, and a multifaceted impact entrepreneur with over a decade of experience in business, philanthropy, and health and wellness. In this space, I'm going to be bringing you insights, not just from me, but from incredible thought leaders around the globe to help you start making decisions towards living a life of freedom so you can live a life you love. Are you ready, guys? Because we are going all in. Today is going to be a special episode. 2 reasons. 1, I am introducing on this episode the Naked series, telling her story. It's going to be raw, probably a little intimate, but what I can promise you is we will not be holding back, peeling away, looking inside of some very hard topics, discussions around her story. And what do I mean by that? In the Naked series, I am going to be speaking with women who have removed their breast implants and who have explanted. Some of these stories are going to give you chills. Other of them are probably going to be very inspiring, inspirational. Others relatable and might be even at times hard for you to listen to. And this is why I want her story to be told. I think it's really important with everything happening in our culture right now, in today's world, where between cancel culture and body image, body problems that we have, health, leaning into the system, not leaning into the system, all of these things. And we need to be talking, we need to be hearing her story around breast implant illness, how it's affecting millions of women around the world today. And little really is being done and exposed on this issue within the healthcare system, between doctors and surgeons, including the FDA, which only in recent years has started to acknowledge women's stories. So I am really excited. I'm going to launch the Naked series today, starting first with my story. So tune in, hope you enjoy, and we'll see you on the inside. On March 2nd, 2022, I made a very simple but hard decision to remove my breast implants after I had them for a total of 11 years. If you were a guy tuning in to this episode, I encourage you to stay because men need to also hear the realities and the hardships of these stories that are affecting women and, young women as well, all around the world. And we need your voice. So if you're a man, I invite you to stay, and I'm grateful for you to tune in and listen to this story. I want to kind of start where the first time I actually really recall hearing the term breast implant illness, also known as BII. November 2021 is really the first time I can recall this phrase actually sinking in. And maybe you can relate, where you'll hear something and it doesn't register, and this is our phrase, goes in one ear and out the other. Or we have selective hearing because at the time, if we don't feel it serves us, we might not allow it to register and sink in. For myself, I think I had both, where over the years, and I'm going to share a little bit of the history of this, I'm sure I've come across the term breast implant illness. It was not until 2018 that I actually first heard the term explanting. But specifically BII, it did not hit me. It did not register that this was a thing until November 2021. I was in the middle of still recovering from the aftermath of having COVID. In October of 2021, I got COVID and as you know, people have different symptoms. They have different effects. For me, COVID attacked my kidney, gave me a wicked kidney infection, and also caused nerve damage. And so after my infection had cleared up and gone, I had this lingering excruciating pain. And I went through a whole bunch of series of seeing doctors, getting blood work done, getting all type of bodily fluid testing done. I'll let you figure that out. I was going to get ultrasounds. I even had an x-ray done. I was seeing a kidney specialist. I eventually went to an internist, and he had said, I had nerve damage. In this process, I had a bunch of people over at my house one afternoon, and the girl that I was speaking with, I was just sharing with her, no different than I am with you right now, just this flow of what happened when I had COVID and it attacking my kidney. And because we couldn't figure out what was going on at the time, I was sharing with her about an incident. I had a biking accident in 2015 after I had put in my second set of implants. And in the biking accident, I had fluid that was coming from my collarbone. I had fallen on my shoulder, I had a collarbone issue, and I had fluid draining from my collarbone to my breast pocket. And I ended up having to undergo emergency surgery, procedures. And because of that instance, it made me start questioning in that moment if somehow maybe my implants were being affected by my kidney, or kidney was affecting, what was going on in my body. I didn't know. I just was really trying to look at it from all different angles. And that's when my friend said to me, standing in my kitchen, so obvious, so matter of fact, she goes, yeah, it's probably breast implant illness. I was sharing with her everything that was going on, which made me start recalling the last 11 years, basically, of my life and everything that I had gone through with my implants. And she shared with me her story. And similar to me, she had two sets. And at one point, she was so sick that her white blood cell count had dropped so much that they actually thought that maybe she had cancer in her body. Intuitively, she really felt that it was her implants and leaned into that and decided that she was going to remove her implants. In telling me her story and everything that symptomatic that she was going through, of course, I got on my laptop that evening and I started looking up breast implant illness. And this is really what started my journey on facing the reality of what was not just what was going on in my body, but the reality and the horrific truth of what breast implants are actually made of, how toxic they are, and mind-blowing that they would ever get approved to be in a body. So let me back up a little bit. I shared that I had breast implants for 11 years total. I had two sets. And the first time I put them in, it was actually in 2011. I was 26 when I put them in. And, one of the questions is why? What made you want implants? And for me, I remember being in university in my early 20s, and I have never really had a chest. Call it kind of like a big A, if there is such a thing. But it never bothered me to the size that I was. When I looked at myself in the mirror, it's like, sure, yes, I would love to be bigger, but I didn't feel that I lacked confidence. I certainly didn't feel any less of value and worth because of my exterior appearance. Luckily for me, I grew up in a home where the internal and who we are is not defined by the external. And so I did carry a lot of that into my early 20s. But of course, you see against other girlfriends. And I had one friend in particular when I was in university that it is all she talked about. She really, really wanted to have implants because she was extremely flat. And so I would say that's the first time that I contemplated, I thought about it. I was like, do I want implants? And I didn't make any other decisions on it. It was just kind of a seed was planted at that time. It wasn't until a few years later that I was actually with a good family friend of ours who she would have been in her 50s probably, and she had put breast implants in her mid 40s. She was a beautiful woman, tall, like, model-esque, 5'9", thin, beautiful. She had 3 children. And she was very, very thin. So she did not have a lot of body fat on her. And after she had 3 children, she decided to get implants in her mid 40s. And I'll never forget what she said. And what she said ended up being the pivotal point for me in making my decision. She said, if I knew how it would make me feel now, I would have got breast implants so much sooner. And she went on to explain how she feels in a dress, in a bikini, with her husband, just in being. It just really made her feel good. It made her feel more feminine. It made her feel more like a woman. And, I think of each of us, we probably do things in our lives to make ourselves feel better. For example, I love getting my nails done. I like having nice nails, and I get my nails done every basically 2-3 weeks. And I'm able to do that no different than getting my hair done. Once in a while, I will have my hair, I'm blonde-ish right now, and I get my hair colored. And I really looked at it from that kind of standpoint. It was like, if you're able to, and it makes you feel good about yourself, then why not? And I'm in my early 20s, and I don't want to wait until I'm in my early 40s to be able to feel how she felt now. And so that was really it. That was my deciding factor. And in December, I had made the decision that I was going to put breast implants in. And in March of 2011, my first set went in. And after my first set, I really didn't feel anything dramatically different in my body, or noticing anyways that I had symptoms that were appearing. One of my best friends, and she's a huge part as to my journey in this around breast implant illness awareness, and ultimately encouraging me to look at what was in my body that was affecting me. But at the time, I showed her my boobs, and I had all of these red dots that basically followed. If you think of putting in the implant, it was in kind of this umbrella shape in the top part of my chest. And I remember her saying to me, "Is that normal?" And my response to her was, "It's just my body adjusting and getting used to the implants." Fast forward now, I recognize that it was my body communicating with me that there was something foreign, something toxic, something that should not be in my body. And my body was trying to alert me and also push it out, right? Whatever is happening on the inside is reflected on our skin. And so it was the body's way of trying to signal to me what was going on. And I sloughed it off, not thinking anything of it, because many women have implants. And the surgeon, I had one of the top surgeons in Toronto, and it was just my body adjusting to the implants. It wasn't until I had put my second set in that I really started to notice symptoms that were happening. But at the time, I never attributed it to my implants. My second set went in 2015. And at the time, I had many other things happening in my life that had caused me and were causing me all kinds of stress and anxiety. At the time, never would I have even thought that my implants could have actually been a contributing factor. My dear best friend, she every now and then would say, "Do you think it could be your implants?" And I would very quickly dismiss it and say, "No, it's because I've got this going on in my life, stress here. Maybe I'm eating something, looking at dairy, all of these different factors," rather than considering that maybe they weren't the direct effect that was causing these outbreaks and these symptoms in my body. Like I had rashes all over, I had spots that would periodically show up. Some of my spots would almost look like eczema. No dermatologist could tell me what it was. I had all kinds of testing done. I did all these different biohacks, which I'm going to get into in a moment. And I was never considering that my implants could be contributing to the toxic load that was taking place in my body. In 2018, implants were being recalled. And some of you might remember this. In 2018, textured implants that had saline inside of them were being recalled all over Canada and the United States. And this is the first time that I heard the word explant. And I remember it kind of became a fad. There was a hashtag that came out for it, and lots of women were removing their breast implants. And at this time, my best friend, again, she asked me to read an article. And truthfully, I cannot even tell you what it was about, but I can promise you that I read it because I would never lie to her. And she asked me to read it. So I know I read it, but as I mentioned earlier, selective hearing is a very powerful thing, especially when we don't believe it's going to serve the narrative that we want to believe, which that also applies to other things happening in our world right now as well. But in this particular instance, I did not want to believe that my implants were causing my thyroid problems, inflammation issues, weight loss issues, stress and anxiety in my body, adrenal fatigue, all of the rashes and outbreaks that I had on my body. I did not want to admit that there could be a possibility that that was contributing to these problems. So I told her I'd read it. She said, "Read it. I will never bring it up again." I called my surgeon at the time in 2018. He told me I was fine. He's never used texture implants in his practice, and therefore I was A-okay, no problems. So I hung up the phone and I was like, that's it. It's not my implants. My implants are fine, and what's happening in my body must be something different. I continue to have these flare-ups, and this is where I went into full biohack mode. For the next 4 years, I would do so many different types of testings, detoxing to try to get to what the root issue was happening in my body. I did live blood analysis, assessing my hormones, trying to figure out my inflammation issues, looking at toxins that were built up in my liver. They found parasites in me. My thyroid was off. I started seeing a bioelectric engineer doing all types of frequency testing against my organs. I was doing gallbladder flushes basically for 6 weeks on a cycle, trying to remove toxins out of my body. I did coffee enemas, literally doing everything to try to figure out what was going on in my body. I then, of course, looking at food as well and working with a nutritionist and working with a naturopath, I eliminated animal protein at that time to really just try to see if things would change on my skin, would change with the inflammation in my body. I even started doing coffee enemas. If you don't know what those are, I was doing them a couple times a week. You can Google it. but it is basically a very deep colon cleanse that is going to extract toxins from your body. I did a Dutch test, which is looking at taking your urine at different times of the day to see where hormones are off. They can also use it for allergies, all kinds of stuff. Using frequency devices like Brain Tap to try to help my adrenals get restored. Literally, I was doing all of the things except looking at the possibility that my breast implants were causing and absolutely contributing to this toxic load in my body, which would then have an impact on everything else in my health system. And it really was not until I was with my friend in my kitchen, November 2021, and hearing her story that I was really confronted that what's going on in my body has to do with my breast implants. And here's the reality. No doctor can say with certainty that what was happening in my body was or was not because of my implants. But what I can say with absolute certainty is that it was 100% contributing to the toxic load in my body. And for me, I had a very hard conversation with myself. If you have been hanging out with me for a few years, if you've been following me on Instagram, you know I am really huge on living a chemical-free and toxic-free life, from my makeup to what I brush my teeth with to my water, not just having bottled water, but the quality of your water matters. So everything, buying my food from farmers, making sure it's organic and that they're grass-fed and grass-finished. There's a long list of stuff that I have made in my life, massive changes over 10 years to really, in the effort to live as clean, as chemical-free as possible, as toxic-free as possible. And yet here I had sitting in my body at a temperature that was cooking in my body. And I knew that it was time, because even if it wasn't the root cause, as I said, I knew it was contributing to everything negative happening with my health in my body. Critically thinking is a beautiful and also a very powerful thing. Using our amazing brains to logically think about a scenario, a situation, does it make sense or not? Just applying logic. When I was considering putting in breast implants, never once did I stop to think about what actually is a breast implant made of, or even asking what will the side effects be to my body, to my health that I could have or develop by having a foreign object in my body for anywhere between 8 to 10 years or thereafter. Not once, never did I stop and think and ask this question. And it's crazy because some women put in their breast implants and they never get them exchanged out. Good surgeons will tell you that you really should be changing them every 8 to 10 years. But it is very common to meet a woman who has put them in and has had them for 10, 15, 20, 30 plus years in their body. And it bothers me now, the woman I am today, that I didn't stop and think about this back then. And I don't know why I didn't. Maybe it was because I was told they were safe and they were fine. The FDA had put their stamp of approval on that, which truthfully, I actually didn't even do that research. I just went to 3 different surgeons. I got 3 different opinions. I spoke to some other women, and I really didn't go beyond that. That was quote unquote my due diligence. And I was relying on the millions of women around the world that already have breast implants and the hundreds of thousands of women that get breast implants year after year. I knew it was a multi-billion-dollar industry annually, and it's one of the top cosmetic procedures performed in the world. Surely they wouldn't approve something if it wasn't safe, would they? I never gave that a thought. And yet, let me ask you this. If a plastic water bottle had been sitting in a car for a day or two where the outside temperature was 98 degrees Fahrenheit or 37 degrees Celsius for my Canadian friends, would you drink from that bottle? Most of us would say no, because logic tells us that the heat causes for the plastic to heat up, causing for chemicals and toxins to run into the water. So you probably would not drink from that water bottle. I wouldn't drink from that water bottle. Yet, are breast implants really that different in the human body? Now, I don't know about you. I didn't really know what the average human body temperature sits at. I looked it up. The normal body temperature sits anywhere between 97, 98 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 36 to 37 degrees Celsius, which you and I both can understand is freaking hot. That is a hot day outside. You wouldn't want to be drinking the water from that water bottle, yet that's what breast implants are sitting in my body for not just a few days, years on end. And you start to think about if that's really kind of sitting there cooking, what is leaking into the body, or what is seeping into the body, going into the bloodstream, which caused me to then think about, what if I were to look up a breast implant? What is it made of? And so in going down this path to learn about breast implant illness, I decided to Google what breast implants are made of. And let me tell you, it is a long list, a chemical soup, if you will, of neurotoxins and carcinogens that seriously blew my mind. The list. So many of these ingredients I cannot even pronounce. But here I was able to manage to say a few that I thought I would share with you that maybe you've heard of, maybe you haven't, but you might be able to understand them a little more. For example, methyl ethyl ketone, that is a neurotoxin. Sodium fluoride, naphtha, which is a rubber solvent, epoxy resin, printing ink, heavy metals such as aluminum and platinum, toluene. I still haven't figured out which one is the right way to say it, even though I looked it up on the internet in the dictionary. What I can tell you about toluene is it is a neurotoxin and a carcinogen. And this is what the NIH states on their website, is that it is the solvent in some types of paint thinners, permanent markers, contact cement, and certain types of glue. And toluene is sometimes used as a recreational inhalant and has the potential of, are you ready? Causing severe neurological harm. And this is just a few of what breast implants are made of. And all of that is just chilling in my body. Rather, should I say, cooking at 37 degrees Celsius or 98 degrees Fahrenheit in my body for years on end. When you actually just stop to think about that and you start doing the research, it is so clear how horrific breast implants actually are. And it's mind-boggling that they could ever be deemed safe, considered safe, or even gain the approval of the FDA to be putting into females' bodies. Years ago, the FDA in the early 90s actually banned implants since they had been using them starting in the 60s. They banned them in the 90s before they magically became approved again in 2006, which I am absolutely going to do a whole conversation on this because it is a massive topic to unpack the process of the FDA. But just in sharing that with you here, just that little bit, it begs the question to start thinking, why? Why would the FDA approve something, disapprove something, then reapprove it? And it's not because there's this, all of a sudden we've got way better products. That might improve slightly, but the proof is in the ingredients. Go look at them. The ingredients haven't changed. They're not all of a sudden organic, natural substances that are in breast implants. It is still a long laundry list of neurotoxins, carcinogens, and different chemicals that are being put into the female body. After spending hours of my own research, I really started to develop this pain, this heaviness in my chest. And it's kind of where they say ignorance is bliss. It really is, because once you know something, you cannot unknow it. And very shortly thereafter, like within days, I had made the preliminary decision that I needed to remove these toxic things out of my body. I needed to remove my breast implants. And then the next quest I found myself on was looking for my surgeon, because that matters so much. There are many surgeons that you will find if you start doing your own research, many surgeons that will say that they don't perform what's called en bloc. They don't perform en bloc or capsulectomy, meaning removing the full capsule out of the body versus leaving the capsule in the body. There are doctors that will say that you don't need to remove the capsule and that it will disintegrate into the body. I can tell you so many surgeons that will tell you the opposite, that the implant not only needs to be fully removed intact, but the capsule needs to come out. And I heard this incredible analogy the other day that I want to share with you. The capsule forms around the implant. And for years and years, it is sitting there accumulating all kinds of things. Could accumulate mold, bacteria, calcium buildup, which calcium, when it is that buildup in the body, becomes almost like paper mache. It's very hard and it's hard to break. So calcium buildups can take place. All kinds of issues can be held within the capsule. If you have leakage happening, if you have a rupture happening, that capsule is trying its best to hold and contain all of the, I'm going to say, non-goodness within this capsule. So imagine you fill up your garbage and your garbage is sitting there for weeks on end, maybe months on end, garbage, rotting, building up bacteria, building up mold, all kinds of stuff. Imagine it would be like you removed the garbage, you went and dumped out your garbage, but rather than get a new bag, you reused the same bag over and over again. That thought is a little grotesque. We all know that bacteria would continue to form, probably smell really bad. At the end of the day, we know that that's not good. And that's kind of what is happening if you were to remove the implant, but you left the capsule in the body. And now you're asking the body to break down this mold, break down the bacteria. As I mentioned, in a lot of cases, there's calcium buildup, which is very, very hard in the body already. And so the capsule just really needs to come out. And it's a risky procedure because often the capsule gets stuck to the muscle and the chest cavity and can be very challenging for a surgeon to take it out. And therefore, there's more risk. And so it is so important that you find a surgeon who is not only willing, but is qualified and is skilled to be able to remove the implant intact and also remove all of the capsule. So en bloc procedure with the capsulectomy is extremely important. And so that list becomes a little more narrow as to who you're going to choose from, but it is absolutely worth it. And so I'm going to share resources here in this episode today on, being able to find a surgeon, why it matters. I go into more detail on my blog even about that, and I give you all these resources. So I'm going to include that for you. But with everything I had learned about the breast implants, what they were made of, it's what brought me to my decision the risk of keeping them in my body was so much greater than the desire to have boobs. Making the decision was the simple, hardest decision I had to personally make for myself. But it brought liberation for me. I knew I was going to be clean and healthy. And it was really the most honoring thing I could do for myself. And I knew that my body was going to thank me for it. And of course, so was my health. And that's what made the decision easy, even though it was hard to make. It was simple. It was like, this is what I need to do. And coming out of surgery, I realized so much. I learned so much, and I'm still learning every day that goes by. But I'm going to share more and more with you about my story. I'm going to unpack some of the lessons I learned post my surgery, what I want to share with you. So keep listening, stay tuned, because there's lots more coming. And if you have explanted, I would love, love, love to learn about your journey. I'd love to learn about your story. Drop me a comment or send me a DM on Instagram. And as I mentioned, I'm going to link up resources here for you in the show notes that will bring you to my blog with all the research around what the FDA is doing versus not doing, what's in the implants, the list, the surgeon list, groups you can connect with. And I also created an ebook for women who have chosen to explant and are heading into surgery. And there's so many things you don't think about and you don't realize to either the day of surgery, post-surgery, going, I wish I had that. I wish I did this. So I created an ebook, which I will link up here for you as well, that's got all kinds of checklists, guided journaling sessions, and affirmations that are going to help prep you to go into surgery and also give you things that you might not think about that you need for surgery and also once you're out of surgery. So check out the notes. And like I said, if you have explanted, I would love to connect with you. And stay tuned. I'm going to be sharing a lot more on my story and on my journey around explanting. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for tuning into the Freedom CEO podcast. If you got value out of today's show, I would love for you to leave a review, as it will help my show reach other people as well. You know what to do. Download this episode, click the like and subscribe button. If you feel like spreading more love, hop over to Instagram and share today's show in your stories. Remember to tag Shane Vidiata and the Freedom CEO. My DMs are always open, so drop me a line. I'd love to connect. Until next time, keep owning your decisions to live a life of freedom. Live a life you love.